Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy MTS here. I wish to talk about my aims to support STEM for Africa and Aborigines or Maoris or people from the indigenous people from the from Australasia, sorry, or Oceania, whichever you pronounce it, how you pronounce it, or whichever you prefer to call it. And I think the idea was from a long time ago when I thought that black people, and especially black people and women, in particular black women and black people generally, were underrepresented in technology. But I thought because if I supported women in Western countries, black women in Western countries, for instance, or black people in Western countries, like Britain or America, the taxes they pay would have to go towards funding things I don't agree with, as I've talked about before, about the military. So the military industrial complex, militarism, wars, weapons trade, and things like that. So I wanted to support people from Africa instead. So their tax money could go into reinvesting into further projects to support Africa, and for instance, in terms of in terms of technology, or it could be reinvested. And one of the ideas I have is that in Africa they could reinvest 10% of all tourism revenue back into technology, which could be used, one, to ensure that tourism, that technology itself is made to safeguard tourism and ensure the tourists are safe, but also happy to come back and visit some of those countries, and also to diversify the economies, so that in Africa, so that if tourism goes downhill, they still have technology and trained youth in technology to especially, or trained people generally in technology for all possible ages, which can I suppose the youth especially need jobs or career opportunities and things like that, so that if tourism for whatever reason isn't adversely affected, like in a global downturn, or where people are less confident in traveling, or where people have less money, as I say, through a global downturn, or where a terrorist event does happen, or something happens that for whatever reason puts tourists off, then they have the youth that can work in, or general people, as I say, who can work in technology, so that it won't be too adversely affected. But hopefully tourism will flourish still. But again, it could be a diversified economy, and people who can't work in the tourism sector for whatever reason could have technological careers. Also, technology can be used to make a lot of things better for tourists, better experience generally as well, safer. Perhaps there might be other things that that technology can do that will help the experience of tourists. But yeah, so I hope that, I think that's a good idea. I don't know what other people think of that idea. As usual, I'd love to hear what people think. But yeah, I'd love to support STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering, or as I often say, it could be used for English, or which is a universal language, especially for business around the world, or entrepreneurship, which could also be a way to help countries to develop, and maths. A lot of countries talking about STEM, as I say, they normally mean science, technology, engineering, and maths, which is, they say, the key areas I've added. E could also stand for English or entrepreneurship, and I think being able to speak English helps with tourists. It's a universal language. I mean, I've heard of some pro-African people who talk about learning African languages instead of English. But I think if you want to trade internationally, it's much easier if they can learn English. So videos like this I hope to make, if I make as many views as possible, well, as much revenue as I make from these, I will donate some to things like STEM education across Africa. And I hope that charities, NGOs, governments, philanthropic groups or whatever will use this money, local people will use this money to ensure that youths especially, or people of all ages, but especially youths, are trained. As I say before in some of my previous videos, I love to ensure that everyone has a PC, laptop, tech training and so forth across Africa. But again, to a lesser extent, but nevertheless possibly also across Australasia, and they can also help, like Aborigines could help Africans, vice versa, and maybe a black diaspora around the world can help each other. So as I say, 54 countries across Africa could help each other, work together and build programming languages and perhaps build codes that they understand and can share information with each other, which helps Africa communicate together. Maybe even they can make their own languages in code online, which are as popular as English, or certainly in Africa, so that they can communicate with each other as well. And they can perhaps go from a country that relies on aid, or relies on, from a continent, sorry, that relies on aid and relies on sport and is seen as weak or whatever, to be going into becoming a continent that's seen as strong and also providing services in for for the rest of the world. So as I say, I would love to raise as much money as possible for STEM for Africa. I'd love to make other people also to make YouTube videos like this, as well as perhaps potentially support my own channel, especially videos like this, which would, like say, if I get lots of views, enough views for this video to make money, I won't make any money from it. I will donate that money as soon as possible to all possible parts of Africa, possibly to Pan-African groups, to bringing unity across Africa as well, and helping them in technology. And I'll say the Aboriginal communities, Maoris, whatever other indigenous parts of Australasia, if there are any others, which I may not have heard of. So as I said before, it was about how I felt black people, and especially women, were underrepresented. So I'm hoping they will go to maybe even an overrepresentation and make up for lost time. And also, like a lot of tech leaders, I want to make as many African women tech leaders as possible, as well as men, but especially the women even more so. And I think people talked about before about what if the next Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or Paul Allen or Steve Ballmer or Larry Ellison or whoever, Steve Wozniak or whoever, could come from parts of Africa, village in Africa, and even be women from Africa. Again, young girls. I think to do that, we must train young girls from the youngest possible age in those areas of STEM. And I think that's, as I say, a real key area for growth for Africa to do well. And as I said, I don't want my videos to be too long because I don't want to put people off or make them bored. But I hope that people will enjoy these videos, and certainly if they support the cause, will spread this message, or maybe make their own videos. They can perhaps have more humour to their videos, or more. They'll probably, whether I like to admit it or not, they'll probably have better voices than me. So maybe, but if you agree with the cause, and I think black people around the world, especially, should, and maybe people of colour or people who just generally want to see Africa do well, people who want to challenge extremism, challenge the far right, and so forth, white supremacy or the far right, to challenge those things. Maybe supporting STEM for Africa could be one way of doing that, at least, or at least partly doing that. Yeah, I can't. Oh yes, and I was going to say about one thing. I forgot my chain of thought there. I certainly remembered it, but then I was talking about something else. So anyway, but I saw something ages ago that said in South Africa, the white people earn a lot more than the black people still. This was a while back, but I'm sure it's still probably true today. And to be honest, I discussed it with my dad, and my dad said, well, the thing is that he said that, oh, my dad doesn't mind mentioning this point, but anyway, he said that maybe it's also about, I think he said something about, bear in mind, I'm remembering from a long time ago, that it is something to do with the education as well. So I thought that one way is to help the black people in technology, then if they're empowered in a key area like technology, then the gap between, like in South Africa, between Afrikaners or Boers or people like that and the indigenous African people could be narrowed, or even, yeah. So it's basically to have black empowerment or people of colour being empowered, especially in places like South Africa. But then I think it'd be great to unite the whole continent and support as much as Africa as possible. Again, I'd love to see female African tech leaders for big companies, and even Africa to transport some of their tech around the world and become number one for tech. Hope that makes sense. So yeah, as I say, just to recap that one, in South Africa they said, the people of European descent, if you like, or the white Africans, the white South Africans earn a lot more, certainly said back then, and it was quite a bit more than the indigenous people, if you like. And I discussed it with my dad, and he said, but to be fair, it's like about the education differences. So like if a doctor's going to be paid more than a road sweeper, say, for instance. So I get my dad's point, but I was thinking, and it was his birthday yesterday, so I don't know if my dad will see this video, but happy birthday, Dad, if you see it. But yeah, I'm not saying his point was right or wrong, but maybe black people were deprived of education, but that's one way to redress the balance and make sure that black people get, who have been treated harshly historically, can become participants in their own economy. But I'd love to see black women in South Africa, especially in all over Africa, Central Africa, Eastern Africa, places like Kenya, where I knew a few Kenyans as well. I'd love to see them in a lot of female technologists running companies, and so where they're paid a lot less, they could be trained in areas where they can start to be paid just as much, if not even more, which I think would go some way to make up apartheid, kind of, or addressing the balance, whatever. But yeah, as ever, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd definitely love to have your support. And yeah, just support STEM in Africa, especially, and also the Aboriginal community, as I said. I think that covers everything. Peace and all the best.